Prominent trial attorney Donte Mills is here with me now to talk more about this. Donte, good to see you. Let's start with the plea deal. Don't know exactly what it is. You actually believe that it's not necessarily off the table yet? He might take a deal?
It's never off the table. And I handle a lot of cases, and that first deal, very rarely do you take. I think that's the start of the process. I know that it's going to have to be something where Diddy's not going to spend a substantial time in jail talking about 10 years or anything like that. Why would you take that? You would rather go to trial and see what the end result is. But if they can offer him something where it's in that 5-year range and there's an understanding that he'll be cleared of everything else, it's going to be appealing to him.
Well, here's the thing, right? He wanted to go to trial as quickly as possible. He thinks he has the good...
Except for the fact...
So you think because that tape is coming in, it changes the whole game?
I think that tape absolutely changes the whole game. Listen, I know we're having a talk here. Let's just break it down. Sean Combs, Diddy, was a hero to a lot of people. He was a guy who pulled himself up by his bootstraps. He was known as a hard worker, but he worked hard and he played hard. That was a part of his lifestyle. To a lot of people, they wanted to be that. But heroes don't beat women. And when you see someone hit a woman the way he did and treat her that way, that hero nostalgia goes away. So there's a lot of people that wouldn't have convicted him, just said, oh, he was enjoying his life with these parties. But now they're going to look at him differently.
But here's the counter-argument. He's not charged with sexual assault. He's not charged with battery. He's charged with sex trafficking. Now, the prosecution will say she was running away from a room where there was a sex worker in there. He drags her back to the room. That's the allegation. But the defense will say this was an unfortunate domestic spat. They know they're going in there. You think everything changed today because of what's allowed in? I mean, they did get some wins today in terms of what
they did, but we do know the law and most everything is about controlling the narrative. And if this jury, despite what the actual charges are, if they don't like who's in front of them, then they're more likely to believe the charges against them. That's just a fact. I've experienced that. That's why when you go into any trial, you want to make the defendant, you want to bring out the good in them. So jurors look at them a certain way. People are not looking at Sean Combs the way they used to. That glamour, that polish is gone. So they're going to be more likely to accept that he's done other bad things.
I think he wanted everything in his power to get rid of the transportation to engage in prostitution charges, said they were racist charges, wanted to make sure the jury never considered him, because it seems to me those might be the easiest charges to actually convict him of. If he was actually transporting sex workers, hotel receipts, monetary receipts, travel receipts. But do you think this prosecution has a slam dunk case with racketeering, criminal enterprise, sex trafficking?
No, I don't think the racketeering is really going to go that far, because he ran a successful business, right? And it was about much more than these freak-offs or sex parties. That was almost like a side impact or a side effect of everything else that was going on. So it's going to be hard for them to say he put this together for the purposes of committing that crime. He's not making a ton of money. He's not profiting or anything like that off of these freak-offs. He's more using that just for his nostalgia and his prestige.
Well, let's say people testify who worked for him and said, yeah, we recruited these women. Yeah, he promised them benefits. We paid certain people. We brought in sex workers. Some people, there was, allegations of forced labor, kidnapping, drug distribution, these underlying crimes for racketeering. Real quick thoughts on that?
Well, it's Diddy parties. People wanted to be at Diddy parties. So that's what the defense is going to put forward. Listen, people wanted to be a part of this, and Diddy was generous, right? So he did that not because he had to, but he was a generous person. They wanted to be there anyway.
Real quick, the prosecution said that they want to discuss this medical procedure that one of Combs' victims underwent. We don't know really what that's about, but it was allegedly he's going to show the degree of control Combs had. What on earth is that about?
If it shows some force, then you have to look at the body part. Is it the vaginal area? Is it maybe the wrist if somebody was tied? So that's what you're going to be looking for, what body parts are impacted. If it shows some kind of force to the point that she needed some medical care, maybe a surgery, that's going to make people say, okay, clearly maybe they were doing something against people's will. But again, he was a hero. People wanted to be around him. It's going to be hard to do that outside of this tape showing him beating a woman.
They won this win today. This forensic psychologist, Dr. Dawn Hughes, going to testify for the prosecution. She testified in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. She can't talk about coercive control, basically because it conflicts with what the legal definition is. And the jurors, by the way, they don't necessarily need an expert for a lot of this, right?
They're going to piece together if someone was there voluntarily or not. And again, I keep going back to this tape, the tape with the beating. That's why it's so important. Without that, the people wanting to be around Diddy is what everybody is going to think. But when they see him putting his hands on a woman, they're going to think he could do that to anybody, including these people who were coming to the party. And that's why they were afraid in those situations.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.